collect a paycheck and go home.
Oh yeah, 8 bars and blah blah blah. Then also everyone wants to dance. They have the audacity to say that Chris Brown is the next Michael Jackson.
Are you freaking kidding me?
I'm like, you gotta be
serious.
I know, but I'm saying, are you freaking kidding me? They might be serious, but are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I felt about it. So, you know, look, I really can get into this whole thing and go crazy about it, but I said to myself for years, okay, there's times when I try and be different, but then there's other times where I sit there in the studio and I say, I cannot believe that I'm working with this person, and this is what it is. And then they all have the nerve to have attitudes. And then you work with a guy like Michael Jackson, who, when he was late to come, we were supposed to be in the studio at 12, and he showed up about maybe, 1:45. He felt so terrible for being late. He apologized through the whole session. The next day, he sent a big, giant basket, because we were talking about movies and how much I love movies. So he sent me this giant basket. I'm telling you
with all
something.
These different movies in it.
Oh my goodness! It probably had 100 DVDs. It had popcorn, candy, all kinds of books and movie trivia books, all kinds of stuff. And again, the card said, "I'm very sorry for not respecting your time."
Well, true professionals in the entertainment industry, for example, when they're late to an interview with me, will apologize beforehand, and I will tell them no problem whatsoever and go on with it, but it's the thought that counts, absolutely.
Right. I would say, Mike, he would say, I said, what time do you want to start tomorrow? He says, whatever he said, Corey, you're the boss. You tell me what time. He said, if you want me here at 7 in the morning, I will be here at 7 in the morning. He said, you are the boss. Whatever you tell me.
What I find interesting about those comments, though, is the way the mainstream media projects it, is that he wanted to always do things his way, and you're telling me...
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. That's what I said. It's like no one... If the world would just stop and just really pay attention, There's a video. What was was it called Monster or something like that he did?
I don't know. Mr. Apostle?
I don't remember what it was.
Thing that I was going to kick in on, stepping back a minute, talking about what's out there now, is I'm horrified to think of the Michael Jackson tributes that are going to come out. I'm horrified to think of what his family may attempt to put out. I'm horrified to think of what records the labels are going to attempt to put together.
The one thing that I'm looking forward to coming out is Michael had been sitting on all of the footage of the Victory Tour, because he owns all of the footage of the Victory Tour. So, I used to beg him all the time, please. As a matter of fact, I do have a DVD.
Give me an advance copy before the public gets to see it. Give me an advance copy, yes.
Like, I have a DVD of an unedited, it's just a straight...
It's just the straight thing. It's the straight footage.
Tour, yeah, it's the straight footage.
Yeah.
Maybe Corey will play it for you sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I have that, and
he'll let me borrow it, and I promise I'll return it later. You know what I mean?
It's amazing. And you know what? The guy did not lip sync. His voice sounded so amazing. It was ridiculous. And it's like, and he did all the dancing. He did all the stuff like that. It's just that he conditioned himself to be able to do that.
And one artist have I ever seen, an entirely different animal, that I've ever seen 2+ hours on stage, and Michael usually went 2.5, at least that one concert we watched was close to over 2.5 in Brazil, I think it was. Mm-hmm. The only one that's close to that pulled it off single-handedly and did all the work, Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce, I know you were going to say that. Yeah, Bruce.
Never stops, never leaves the stage. When Michael was leaving the stage, it was for 1 minute to change his clothes, and it was a real 1 minute. It wasn't the 10 minutes. With the 12 beauty police in there. He was back on. And by the way, has anyone bothered, speaking of his dancer's feet, has anyone bothered to look at how this kid danced? I mean, who idolized Michael Jackson? Fred Astaire.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
It's so many stories. I mean, there's so many things. Michael, he loved to sit and tell stories. He loved to talk.
Yeah.
About everything, Every time he came to like a city or something, I remember he wanted to go to the bookstore. They closed the bookstore down. He'd go to get books. He read, he educate me on Africa and how beautiful Africa is. And he said, people don't want you to know how beautiful Africa is because, they're over there robbing it of all its riches. But he said, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. And he brought me pictures, and, it's just amazing. And then, one David Blaine, remember David Blaine buried himself alive?
Yeah, sure.
And
he used to hang out on our floor at Sony. You don't remember it, but he used to hang out up there.
Oh, I know.
Around the time your friend 50 Cent was running and getting us coffee.
Yeah, I know.
This is a very random story, but continue. This is a very funny random story, but as you were saying.
Oh, well, no. So David Blaine buried himself alive in the city over by the Trump building or something.
Trump National Towers.
Right. And when I told Michael that was going on, he was like, you gotta be kidding. I said, I'm telling you, he didn't even know who David Blaine was. So I started, sending for, video footage and everything, because we didn't have YouTube then. So
yeah.
I started sending for footage and everything to explain to him who David Blaine was. He was so fascinated. We got in a van that night, right?
Yeah.
And we went to see David Blaine. Late at night, we went over there. We jumped out the van, and he had a kind of partial disguise, and no one really knew it was him. And he jumped out and walked right over there. We sat there, and he was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
It was funny. Then we were laughing, because sometimes he said, you know what, half the time, someone's going to think it's an impersonator, not me anyway. So sometimes I could just jump out.
I have to ask, and this is because, you seem to have had a lot of personal conversations with him, but did you ever talk with him about the plastic surgery?
Yep.
And what did he tell you?
He said, what's the difference in me and Sylvester Stallone and everybody else in Hollywood? He said, so what? He said, listen, he said, my skin disease, he said, I don't want to be white. He said, that's not what I'm trying to do. He said, but, I couldn't help my skin disease. He said, I did try a surgery to even it all out and do things like that. That did not turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. But that's not the reason I turned into a light-skinned, black man, But as far as his nose, he said, as far as my nose, I hated my nose just like Sylvester Stallone hated his.
That's what he said his father told him.
Yeah, he said, he said, I hated my chin, I hated my nose, he said, and so what? He said, why is it just me? He said, why is it just me? He said, if someone asks me, he said, why is it just me? He said, I can show you 20 people in Hollywood that's got nose jobs, lip jobs, Botox, all kinds of stuff.
Well, the question is going forward, looking at this whole thing and looking at this whole situation, I guess wrapping up with both of you, and I thank you both for your time this evening. Is there anything else you'd like to share, and we can go in any direction you want about Michael?
Well,
let me go first, and then because Corey's better to sum this up than I am, Chris. The only thing I want to share is my only story is my uncle. I have one story and then my thoughts. My uncle used to be very close friends with Bill Cosby.
Okay.
And in the late 60s, he handed me one of the first records I ever had. I think the first record I had was the Monkees. And then he handed me a Michael Jackson, Bill Cosby record that they did. That I still have. It's kind of like a yellow submarine with a beautiful booklet inside. One of the most cherished possessions I have, and I can't wait to see it on Saturday. On my thoughts with Michael Jackson, disregarding anything else, is that I just hope that the landslide that's going to come out in the next couple of weeks, if some people start taking the high road, it ain't going to be the New York Post and the Daily Mirror and stuff like that, but I hope that some people start discussing all the good that he did, because if you weigh the good against the bad, my God, he's the most famous person in the world. It's been on TV 24/7 for 6 days. I mean, that's just my hope, and God bless him and let him rest in peace. And, we'll all see him someday later on in our life, and I'm sure he'll be singing and dancing his ass off.
As far as I'm concerned, and I actually Sunday I went to church and I spoke to my pastor at my church.
Yes.
And I said, because I wanted to be clear on something, I said I wanted to make sure that I'm not going to get attacked or get in any trouble by, expressing myself the way I had been expressing myself. I said not to compare anyone to Christ, because there is no comparison to Christ. But if you just look at for a second like this world that we live in within God's world, which is called the entertainment world.
Yeah.
Okay?
Fair enough.
You know, Michael, to me, I can only tell you to me, and I'm sure I can get you dozens and dozens and dozens, or hundreds of thousands of people who feel the same. Michael Jackson was like a Christ-like figure for us. Okay?